and welcome to the Season 2 Summit for Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast on hiking trails. So, Dusty, if I could drop you in any of these national parks that we visited and during our time in Season 2, if you could just magically be transported there, where would you go and why?
Oh, what a great question. I think that depends on time of day, what has happened to me that week, what
Cyndi Lauper song you're singing in your head?
Exactly.
Right.
All the things.
Right.
If I were to answer right now, like where would I go right now? You know what I think it would be? This is like, I didn't think I would say this.
It's going to be different than what I thought you were going to say.
I think I might say Morro Rock in Sequoia.
Oh, okay.
The one that brought me all that fear. Because having done it, I'm like, no, I actually I would certainly do that hike again. I don't know that there are other hikes that brought me fear, but I don't know that I would do those again. But this one...
Is that the park you would be dropped into? So you would want to go to Sequoia and you'd want to hike that again?
Sequoia specifically to do Morro Rock. Again.
Interesting.
Yeah. Even though, say yesterday you asked me that, I probably would have said Haleakala, in a moment.
Yeah, in a moment. That was my guess for you.
Favorite place. But today I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's a little gray here and a little rainy here. And I'm like, I don't know. Morro Rock just feels like the place to go for me today.
Yeah.
I anticipate it being a moment of I'm going to do this on my own. And just go straight up by myself, face that fear and come back down.
Got you.
What about you?
Well, I was going to say Sequoia too, because we're just brain sharing. But I wasn't thinking about a hike at that point. I was just thinking if you could get dropped in a park now, where you'd be. If I had to just be dropped somewhere, magic my way over to that space, I think it might be, even though it's probably hot, as that place that burns below us. I don't know why I can't say hell. I believe I would probably go to Capitol Reef because there's so much to see there that we didn't see. I would definitely 100% do Chimney Rock again. I wanted to do Sulphur Creek real bad.
I know.
That was that's something that is always there for
backcountry hikes too.
It's there for another time.
It is.
Yeah.
We'll get back.
Yeah.
We'll get back.
And that's what we're talking about today in our Season 2 Summit on Hiking Trails. All about the trails which we experienced in each of the national parks that we went to.
Yes.
Because our podcast is about hiking the trails of America's national parks.
One hiking trail in one national park, one park at a time.
So let's get started and let's talk just a little bit about the trails that we did and covered. Let's talk about Hawaii Volcanoes.
Hawaii Volcanoes National Park.
So in Hawaii Volcanoes, we had the Sulphur Banks Trail, the Halomau Trail, the Kilauea Iki Trail, and the Pu'uloa Trail, the Petroglyphs Trail. So those were our 4 trails that we did, but we did some other things while we were there. We drove Chain of Craters Road, but we're really just kind of looking at hikes right now and the hikes that we did.
Right.
What was your favorite of these 4, would you say?
Oh, that's really hard.
Yeah.
Sulphur Banks Trail is short, but it is so cool to see those.
The vents, yeah.
The vents. Halomau Trail is partially through a rainforest, and it's lovely and wonderful and dreamlike. Kilauea Iki Trail is right over a what is now not an inactive volcano.
Right.
That was cool.
The
petroglyphs there were so many of them.
Yeah.
There were so many of them.
Yeah.
Kilauea Iki Trail is the one that's sort of if I were to go back and could only do one, I might do that one so that now I could do the loop. Because the loop was closed.
The loop was closed when we were there.
But I really loved that. I liked it because hiking on what is, I guess, hardened.
Like pumice almost.
Pumice rock,
basalt.
which was, volcanic rock.
Yeah.
Was so different than
it was
anything
very
else.
Different. Yeah. I think that's probably mine, but I have to say the Petroglyphs Trail was pretty magical. I think it was also, again, atmospheric because of the time of day that we were there. It was kind of later in the day. The sun was sort of at a really low angle. So the sun, golden hour-y kind of things. And I think the cool thing about that trail was that you hiked it and then you get to the boardwalk where there are tons of petroglyphs. But then on the way out, you didn't realize how many petroglyphs were also along the way before you got to the boardwalk.
Oh, yeah. And you start noticing them on your way out.
Which was really, really cool. So I think that was something that was a big takeaway there. What did you think about signage when it came to trying to find trails or to stay on trails in Hawaii volcanoes?
I felt the signage was fine. Like, I mean, I think they were fairly clear about, like where things were. Yeah. There was some really big cairns, like cairns that were like small hills of volcanic rock.
Through the Kilauea Iki is where I feel like we saw the most of those.
Right. But yeah, I never felt confused on any of these trails.
I felt like it was very clear and very easy. What would you say, like, your favorite site along the trails? Like, pick a trail. What was your favorite thing to kind of see when we were there?
Well, the petroglyphs are very special. As we said, seeing those is super cool. Yeah, and those vents, in the Sulphur Banks Trail.
That was a cool, like, just, hey, you got here. Here's the visitor center. Oh, why don't you just mosey this way a little bit?
It's literally right there.
Literally right there. And it's accessible. It's really easy to get to.
The boardwalk is fun.
And the boardwalk's really nice.
That was like our introduction to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park.
It was a great
Sulphur Banks Trail. Great intro. So yeah, I loved Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And speaking of what used to be part of Hawaii National Park, which is now, they've split into two. We now have Hawaii Volcanoes and Haleakala National Park over in Maui. Who are so hilarious with one another on their Instagram accounts.
They are.
I recommend following them so that you can see. They'll be like, oh, hey, remember when we were together? I mean, they'll like, because you can like see the other island from,
basically,
you can see the other island from one island. And they do that. It's really fun.
Yeah.
All right. So Haleakala National Park. Because now I'm from Boston.
Yeah.
Haleakala National Park in Maui. All right. So we only did one trail.
Yeah, but it was the most
Haleakala.
epic trail.
The most epic trail.
Right.
You can also, I mean, people go to Maui to drive on the
Road to Hana. And part of the Road to Hana is part of Haleakala National Park.
Right. You have to drive all the way to the end to get to that section.
Yeah.
But
things we didn't
have time to do. We did some of the Road to Hana, which you can hear in Haleakala Part 2. But we didn't get to do all of it. But we do recommend it.
Yes.
But let's talk about Haleakala and the Sliding Sands Trail.
Yeah.
Since this was the only hike we did, what was your favorite part about this hike? Let me count the waves.
Yeah, seriously. The vast amount of scene changes. Like, you just were in so many different landscapes. But I think my favorite part was as we were coming close to the end, we had to climb back out of the crater. And we were in cloud cover the entire day, basically, when we were there. Or when we started from the summit, we could see into the crater and we had, pretty clear skies there, but we basically walked into a cloud and we're in a cloud for at least half of the hike. As we're coming up the edge of this cliff, the clouds just broke and you could see everything. And you could see where we were like hours prior. It was such a cool perspective to have. And I think hiking it probably not as cool as it was to hike while we were in like the clouds. I think being able to see the entire time would be something truly magical. And I think it opened up, having that opening in the clouds was that kind of like special moment for me.
Definitely. Yeah. It definitely was.
Yeah.
That was like the thing I'll never forget in my life.
Yeah.
Just standing there and then it was like, and it lasted for maybe like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was like, take your photos and then put your phone away so you can have a moment.
Yeah.
And then it was covered again. I know.
Like Brigadoon.
So special. So special.
Yeah.
Let's talk about getting around on the Sliding Sands Trail. How was the signage for you?
It was pretty good. There was like one point I feel like where we weren't like there were a few ways that you could kind of like jut off, and actually the Sliding Sands Trails you could add on to it to make it a little bigger and do some additional things. And it was, I feel like, fairly well marked, but there were like, at one point we were from a distance looking, we're like, wow, look at all those trails. We must be going there. Psych, we weren't doing that at all.
That was toward the beginning. Yeah. Like they were over off on the left.
Yeah.
And then, so I don't know where those trails were.
No.
They weren't listed on the map either. The map, I remember, was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
What was great about the map was it did show all those like additional things that you could add on.
Yep.
We ended up doing what was
the main route,
the main route, right? We didn't add on any sort of additional circles except for this one very small circle called the Silver Sword Loop, which highly recommend because silver swords are beautiful and the coolest, and they only grow literally in that place in Hawaii. Yep. So
enjoy it.
Enjoy.
Right.
But I do feel like, going back, I would do this hike all the time.
Oh,
all the time. If I lived in Maui or could get to Maui quickly, it would just be like, hey, you haven't done this yet? Looks like we're doing it again. I mean, I would easily probably set a world record for person who has done it the most.
Yeah, I think.
Because it's so good.
I also understand why we saw trail runners there, because that's actually, I'm always like mouth agape at people who decide to run trails, especially when they're like jagged rocks and like steep decline, and I'm like, God bless you all for taking this upon yourself. But I feel like this is a trail that you could really lean into when it comes to trail running. There are some areas where it gets a little like bumpy here and there, but for the most part you're traveling on smooth ground for most of the trail, so I get why people trail run there.
What I was comparing it to the other day is like,
what?
To someone who had never been there, when I was like, the terrain changes so much, right? Like you begin and it's like you're on this like abandoned Mars kind of planet, and then suddenly you are like in like headed to Maleficent's castle on volcanic rock, and there's smoke all around you. Then you're in this sort of low forest. Then you are in a sort of bright, sunshiny meadow, and then suddenly you're in, literally fields of gold. Then you're climbing cliffs. When you're like playing a video game, like on Mario, it's like you're in this world, and then you move into this world, and then you move it. Like that's what it felt like.
We were in Little Big World.
We were Little Big Planet.
Sure, Little Big Planet.
Have you played that game?
No.
You would. Okay, I am not a big video gamer. I do love a good video game.
Right.
Little Big Planet is the most beautiful video game ever.
Great.
Like I had a roommate like 10 years ago who loved it, and it's so creative and it's so beautiful. You play a little sack person traveling through these like beautiful worlds. It's like, you have things to do, but there's no villain. I mean, there's times of conflict, but there's no villain. It's just about like journeying through this beautiful place.
Well,
this
anyway,
is not
back
an
to the
ad.
National Park.
This is definitely not an ad for Little Big Planet, but I did feel like
you leaned in hard.
You leaned in hard. Why not?
But
it could be an ad.
Yeah, it could be an ad. Well, unfortunately, Hawaii was, the most beautiful and most short-lived for us. And it's the furthest away. I mean, barring Alaska and Guam.
Right.
But we
eventually.
But we did spend some time in a park that was much closer to us. Actually, we visited it twice now. And I have a feeling that we will be back again shortly, because it is a wonderful land. And that land is Shenandoah. When we were in Shenandoah on 2 separate trips, we did 5 different hikes. They were Old Rag, White Oak Canyon, the Little Stony Man or the Stony Men, Fox Hollow, and also Little Devil's Stairs. And the last 2 we did in the summertime, and the first 3 we did in the fall, but much later than our summer trip. What was your favorite of those 5?
Oh,
I got an answer.
Old Rag. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
That was so
White Oak
fun.
Canyon is a very close second.
Very close second. That was the one with the waterfalls, right?
Where you like freaked out at the top because you were like, we can't have to go 6 more miles. I need to eat. Also, did you like that terrible we can't have to go?
We can't, right.
No. Yeah.
No. I think it was because at the top of White Oak Canyon, I was hungry.
You're like, this is what happens when all you eat is a bar for breakfast and you don't feed me.
Right, because it's
Direct
your
quote.
job to feed me.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. No, I believe my
Here
words
comes the
were,
airplane.
I am so hungry.
Yeah.
And all we ate was granola bars for breakfast, and I'm going to need something else.
Pardon me, sir, but my hunger has reached epic levels, and I cannot go on without sustenance.
I cannot go on.
That's how proper you were about it.
That exactly.
False.
Right.
I agree with you about Old Rag.
White Oak Canyon was gorgeous.
Right.
And it was literally like hiking up waterfalls the whole time. I think Old Rag was my favorite just because it was really fun to do all that
climbing,
bouldering, literal bouldering around boulders.
Here you are, you have to go through this cave, and here you are going under this giant rock that's hanging over your head
really
and could fall at one point. Like,
I loved that.
I do think that like, and that is, I feel like their sort of like jewel hike. Like that's the hike that you kind of like hear about most. I do want to.
And it was really busy at the top, and we got there very early.
We did, and it was also like early November, which was perfect weather to be hiking there.
Yeah.
But Old Rag is definitely high on the list for me.
High on the list. Mm-hmm. How was signage for you in Shenandoah?
I feel like things were pretty good there.
Shenandoah was the one with the posts.
Yes,
that had
that tiny writing
text.
Yeah.
Like that was imprinted inside of the silver wrap around the top of the post. If you don't know to look for it, like we wouldn't have even seen it had we not like. There were maps. We were working with maps the whole time. And that being said,
the trails are very it wasn't hard to feel like, oh, do we go this way or do we go that way? Like I felt like the trails were very clear as to their direction and what to do. Like even in like White Oak Canyon, it's like, okay, you get to the bridge and that's the halfway point. If you want to continue to hike, you still have another like 6 miles to go. We'd already done like 6 getting up there, something like that.
Yeah.
So it was like a 12-mile day because we came back down.
Full day.
And then we did Little Stony Man after that. Little Stony Man.
Did we? No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did.
We did that after White Oak Canyon.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Old Rag. Sorry about that. Sorry, girl.
No.
We did. That was the big day.
Old Rag was a big day just by itself. That's because that's all we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is like, it's so worth it. It's great.
And then after Old Rag, we ended up having dinner in Charlottesville.
Right.
That's what we did.
Right. Fox Hollow was a nice little hey, we've never been to Shenandoah before. Like, here's Dickey Ridge, the visitor center, and like that section, like the northernmost section of the park. It was an easy hike to get into. And Little Devil Stairs.
That was tough, girl.
That was real hard.
That was real hard.
It was cool. Like, again, you're kind of hiking up. I just remember hiking up these giant boulders, like near like running water.
Like hands and feet up boulders. Like on what used to be a waterfall, straight up for basically a mile. And that was when at the end of it, we were like, we're going to Ruby Tuesdays.
Right.
And we did back when those were, restaurants sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So now we move into the next park from season 2, which is Kings Canyon. Kings Canyon, which is very much near Sequoia. They are managed together. But Kings Canyon has a bunch of trails in what I'm calling the thumb section of Kings Canyon National Park. And so it's a bunch of interconnected trails near Grants Grove. What was your favorite part of hiking those trails in that area in Kings Canyon?
How do you say, it's just the trees that like being in that space and being able to see those trees, which are so, so large, like it just really is so spectacular. And I think not really comprehending that scale until you're there. It was still snowy on the ground. So this was one of the first trips where we had really experienced snow in the parks because we hadn't been to Rocky Mountain yet. So it was kind of like that cool air, like still early spring. So there was a lot to like atmospherically take in. And I really appreciated that. Walking through that log was great. The one downed tree that was used as a bar and like a schoolhouse. Like there were some really great parts there. The trails that like we kind of took there, it was like the North Boundary Trail, I believe. And that kind of led us into those other trails in the park. Those were great, but I do feel like we got to a point where we were like,
we were exhausted and tired and a little lost. Like
I do feel like we lost
any
did sort of like blazes or Karens. So I do feel like that was something that could have been a little bit better from our experience there.
But you did have sequoia trees right and left almost all the time, the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, there is something to be said about just like the beauty of all of that when we were there. And
the fact that they only grow in that area.
Mm-hmm. And how spectacular it really is. Like, because there is so much to offer in that space. Yeah. I don't know. It's a park to do. Like, if you're going to do Sequoia, you have to do Kings Canyon.
The other thing is, and this is what somebody told us, is they were like, don't leave the park without driving up and looking into what is actually Kings Canyon. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to like drive a little further on in order to like look out and see it. That was stunning. That was absolutely stunning. We were so tired. But we were like, let's do it because they said to do it, and we did, and it was worth it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Oh, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Right.
Speaking of Kings Canyon.
Right. Leads us right into Sequoia when we spent our magical 3 days in Fresno.
Yes.
And drove ourselves into the parks that were Sequoia, Kings Canyon.
And what's your favorite restaurant?
Sweet Cherries.
No,
Sweet Tomatoes.
Sweet Tomatoes.
I always want to call it Sweet Cherries.
Well, there is a cherry tomato
as their logo.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, Sweet Cherries.
Sweet Tomatoes.
Anyway,
buffet. God, it was a buffet that we loved.
Yeah, when buffets were a thing.
If they'll ever be a thing again. I don't know. But
anyway,
Sequoia's
like the big brother to Kings Canyon, I feel like, or big sister or big sibling, because Sequoia just like kind of was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of took what Kings Canyon had and sort of ran with it. Like, I felt like Kings Canyon, again, most of Kings Canyon is a lot of backcountry. So the section we were in, the Grants Grove section, is fairly small when you think about all the backcountry there. And, but Sequoia felt like there was more,
much bigger. Yeah.
Like more sections that if you were like a layman sort of hiker or a layperson sort of hiker and didn't really, feel comfortable in any backcountry situation, there was so much that you could do in that section. And the hikes that we did when we were there was the Congress Trail, which sort of leads off of the General Sherman, kind of in and around that area, Round Meadow, and Mora Rock. So those were our 3 kind of substantial hikes that we were there. What was your favorite?
Oh.
Did I catch you off guard? We've only been doing these questions.
No. I know I said Mora Rock. Mm-hmm. I would want to go back and do it again. My favorite in Sequoia was Round Meadow. Yeah. It's flat. It's a circle around. It's not a lake. There's no water in the middle there. It's just a meadow. And
but it does
like
seasonally
you just go
flood
all around and see so many trees. And it's so, God, I loved that. I love that. I also love, I love a good boardwalk trail. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean like we have a ton of money and we've made a boardwalk trail. Mm-hmm. I mean like we have put like
a board
2x10s down on the ground, and like you have to walk along them in order to get right. Mm-hmm. I love those. And there was some of that in the Round Meadow.
There. I have a hard time. I mean, Round Meadow is probably the top. Mora Rock the trail to get out there was great. Sitting and viewing Mora Rock from afar was really awesome. When we got to that point, we could see it from a distance, and then the terror set in for both of us there, but it was still really cool. And the Congress Trail, you just see so many sequoia trees.
You see so many.
You have the House group and the Senate group, which are clustered, and it's just like impossible, like these impossible trees that just are there. Are living and are, have been there thriving for thousands of years.
Yep.
But yeah, Round Meadow, there was something, again, the light was spectacular. And that's where you kind of gain perspective, because you're not in the forest so much. You can see an opening and you can see the trees from afar. Whereas in like Congress Trail, like the trees are all around. So I feel like you don't have as much like perspective of like open space versus clustered sequoias. So I feel like that gave that perspective for me.
Yeah.
How did you feel like signage and navigating was in Sequoia?
There was always a sign at a junction.
Mm-hmm. The map was pretty good.
Yeah. I never felt lost. I felt like I could navigate the whole time.
Yeah.
Not the same for Kings Canyon.
No.
But Sequoia, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was great. And then, the sights to see, while yes, certainly you have sequoia trees, which are different than redwood trees.
Right.
Certainly, we did a whole thing about sequoia trees. We have a whole trail mix on them where we dig into exactly what they are, where they came from, their history, their life cycle. But the view from the top of Morro Rock is unlike anything I've ever seen. And I am really glad that I did that hike.
Yeah. Fear and all.
Because it is like a boulder that is out in the middle of just like open valley mountains. And it is wild to be up there. It feels like you are floating in the middle of like this giant vastness.
In your castle in the clouds.
Literally. Yeah. Like a fear of heights is probably going to be triggered here, but as was mine. But it was so spectacular.
But it was worth it.
Worth it.
Let
every
your triggering
moment.
happen.
Yeah. Speaking of giant open vastness, that brings us to Black Canyon of the Gunnison.
There's a lot of things that could have gone in there, but yeah. Black Canyon of the Gunnison, which was, I think, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, maybe my favorite park in Colorado.
Really? More so than Rocky Mountain?
I know that this is going to be
more
like
so
a
than
triggering,
Mesa Verde, more so than sand dunes.
This is going to be a triggering moment for you, but as crazy as Tamichi Route was, I don't know. It's high up there for me.
Oh,
it's high.
We'll get into Tamichi Route in a second.
For me.
All right. So Black Canyon of the Gunnison is absolutely one of the most stunning things I've ever seen in my life.
One of the least visited parks.
You know what? Remember someone... It was Danielle from Everybody's National Parks, the podcast, also great show.
Yeah.
She asked us, she was like...
This was like a general question.
I've heard some people say, like, if you can't get to Grand Canyon, like, go to Black Canyon. Like, does the experience compare?
Right.
Blah, blah, right. And we were both like, no, you just have to do both.
Yeah.
Like, there's no... just... enjoy it, like make time for both somehow, some way.
That wasn't her asking us per se. That was like a question that she had come up,
been posed to her.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And she, I don't think has been to Black Canyon of the Gunnison.
I don't believe so. No,
I think that might be why she.
Danielle, let us know.
It is stunning. It's called Black Canyon of the Gunnison because there's so many slots in it that parts of the canyon only get light for about 15 minutes. A day. Yeah, which is why it's called Black Canyon. Yeah. Anyway. We did a bunch of things while we were there. We did the Warner Point Trail, which is like a 1 mile out and back trail right at the end of
South Rim
Road down there on the South Rim. And then there's a bunch of small hikes out to viewpoints. We did all those.
From the South Rim Road.
Right. We did the Tamichi route, which it is a wilderness route. So it's not
a maintained trail.
Exactly. So there's no signs. It's not a maintained trail. And therefore you are on your own, girl.
And you have to be prepared to survive for 24 hours in case
and you have
rangers need to come
do a permit. And the way the permits work is you go tell them you're going to do it at the visitor center. They grant you the permit. Then you go do it, and then when you're done, you come back and bring your copy of the permit back so they know you've returned. Because if they don't get it back, they go down and they look for you.
Right.
So don't forget to return.
Don't forget to get a permit.
Well, don't forget to get a permit so that they know you're down there.
Yeah.
And 2, don't forget to return it.
Yeah.
No, there are other routes down into the canyon that I would like to do.
There's at least 3. And the Warner route.
Yeah, Warner Route and Gunnison Route. I would love to do both of those. Yeah. When I look at routes, all the trails that we did, Tamichi Route is not the one where, like, if I were going to be like, what is the route that you felt like was the most exhausting, the most taxing, and then just the one that, like, you were so happy to be done with? It's not actually Tamichi Route. It's another one, which if you want to ask me that later in our game, you can.
Great. I will.
So,
foreshadowing.
No, Tamichi Route was certainly challenging.
Yeah,
but it was not like but the only thing was getting lost. And, like in hindsight, it's like we were headed absolutely in the right direction, as was the other hiker we met up with. We were all actually headed correctly in the straight area, and had we kept going, we wouldn't have been lost.
Yep. Yeah. It's just fun. It was, it's a hike that you really, if you have small kids, probably not a hike to do.
But if you're going with someone else, hike in tandem, in parallel.
Yep.
You can't be one in front of the other.
Yeah. If you have, if there's, issues with your ankles or your wrist, like just because you have to do some scrambling, it's not a hike for everybody by any means, but for me, it fed that like adventure hiking need. Like
the one that like is always pining at you anytime we show up anywhere.
Yeah, I'm like, we're gonna.
I have to get out onto the trails, and I have to hike 50 miles in the next 30 minutes.
Yep, that's me.
You,
because I'm just one of those speed walkers you hear about.
Speed walkers, pedestrian walker.
Pedestrian walker.
You.
Right. So that's Black Canyon, which leads us a little further west to our Mamma Mia Wonderland, which is Channel Islands, and the hikes that we did there, because our time was short on Channel Islands, but nonetheless beautiful.
Channel Islands is a national park located off the coast of Oxnard, California, located in Ventura County.
Yeah. But we did the Scorpion Canyon Loop and Potato Harbor Road were basically the hikes that we were able to do.
That Scorpion Canyon Loop was dream.
Yeah.
So was Potato Harbor Road, but Scorpion Canyon, you were like in all of the hills and all the stuff.
Yeah.
I am dying to do the thing where we take the ferry all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Of
Smuggler's Cove. Was it Smuggler's Cove? I think it might be.
And then Scorpion hike all the way back to Scorpion Anchorage.
Yeah.
That's for next time.
I'm also dying to just do the other islands.
Same.
Like someone reached out recently and were like, hey, are the islands open? And there was a fire this past, during the spring. They're also building a new pier at Scorpion Anchorage. It took Santa Cruz kind of out of commission for right now. But someone else just recently reached out and said that they were at Anacapa Island, and they were able to get there, that the ferry service was great. Social distancing, masks, everything was like very clean and very easy. So I think just check into it if you're looking into it and thinking you can go. But yeah, I do want to go to the other islands too. I mean, Santa Cruz was beautiful and wonderful, but I would love to see the other ones as well.
I would too.
Yeah. There wasn't really signage per se. Like there weren't blazes.
But the map was clear.
The map was clear and the trails were clear.
Super clear.
You're basically
you're not
open
dealing
fields.
with there really aren't trees.
Yeah.
At least on
Santa Cruz.
There are trees maybe like closer to the dock, in Scorpion Anchorage. But when you're up top on the hills, it's just like it's green hills.
Yeah. And that brings us to our last park.
It does, which is
good old Capitol Reef.
Capitol Reef National Park. In Capitol Reef National Park, we did the Cassidy Arch Trail, followed by the Frying Pan Trail, followed by walking along the road, which then brought us back to the Grand Wash Trail, and then finally Chimney Rock, and we did all of that in one day.
We did. We were busy. Bees. In the Beehive State. I believe that's Utah.
Our relationship to productivity is the same, which sometimes really works in our favor and sometimes mutually exhausts us.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
What was your favorite hike?
God, they were all so good. Chimney Rock gave me a view I will never forget. But I think the actual physical hiking of the everything, I would say Frying Pan. Cassidy Arch was fun, but Frying Pan was so it reminded me of
Devil's Garden
and Arches. You know what I mean? It definitely okay, now you're going over this boulder in order to continue the trail, and it was just I loved it.
Yeah,
desert hiking is so good.
Lots of water, folks. I would say for me, I get where you're coming from there, and you know how much I love Devil's Garden, so I'm kind of surprised I'm not saying Frying Pan, but I think Cassidy Arch was a great starter hike. I feel that was I feel if you really want to get warmed up, park on one side of the Grand Wash, walk down to the Cassidy Arch, all the way down Grand Wash to Cassidy Arch, do that, and then do the Frying Pan and loop back sort of how we did. Just we parked in a different spot.
Right.
But I thought Cassidy Arch was great. And
or if hitchhiking works for you,
yeah,
you could do that. But yeah, Cassidy Arch did have a really great payoff.
Yeah. Signage. Utah, you take the cake when it comes to Karens.
Seriously.
Because you are the best. Every other, I don't think any other state holds a candle or a Karen to your Karen usage, because it's impeccable.
I'm thinking of, there's a lot of Karen usage in Acadia, but like, no, Utah has got it down.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
I am never uncertain of where I am in a Utah park at any time.
Not from what we've experienced.
No.
And we've been to them all now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I always know exactly where I am and where I need to go next.
Yep. So, yeah, those are our trails.
I know.
And with that, we must introduce our final queen for season 2.
Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. Wait, let's do it more like robots. Ready? Yeah. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, please welcome to the stage, Ella.
Miss Ella.
Oh, you said Miss.
Miss.
Elevation. Not to be confused with elevator.
Right. No.
She's different.
She is different.
This is Elevation.
She is. Miss Elevation is the top of the charts.
She's always the top.
She is
in charge.
She is the Leo of the group. She's definitely a Leo.
Oh, yeah.
She is in charge and she needs to be seen at all times.
Seen at all times. She's the headliner.
She is.
Everyone else opens for Elevation.
She is the Velma Kelly.
Yeah.
Right.
She probably has a lot of Velma Kelly references. Mm-hmm. Yes. When I think of Elevation, I do think of someone like Velma Kelly who's very sharp, a dancer, like can just dance the house down boots and like just kills it every time.
Dance the house down boots. That's a new phrase.
Oh, well, I hear them say that all the time on Drag Race. Oh. And this was my first time experimenting using it.
There you go.
Yes.
She is a dancer. I feel like there's always a platform that's like bringing her up from below stage. Like, I know that's on the nose, but like, I don't care. I want it.
But why not? Yeah. Why not? It's just those tiny little nuanced moments of like
always a raised platform.
Always a raised platform, right?
What song does she sing?
Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
A little on the nose.
Again, whatever. It's our last it's our last full episode.
Right not.
Right. For the season. Yeah, I think that's great. I think she could do a nice duet with somebody. Maybe one of our drag kings could come in.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe Cliff Bar.
Cliff Bar
and Elevation sing Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
I could get into that.
Yeah.
I could get into that. What would be her big dance number? Like, what's the song that she's like lip syncing and dancing like crazy to?
Well, I mean, I feel like, have we done She's a Maniac? Because I feel like...
Oh, she could do that.
This might be her song. I feel like that's a very much like, look at me and look what I can do. Yeah.
She might do also like her like big number at the end might also be like, you know, a mashup of a bunch of things.
Right. I do feel a little, anything you can do, I can do better.
She's probably got Broadway.
Right.
And also just like...
Pop.
Killer pop, you know?
Does she have a signature beverage?
Yeah.
I feel like it might be like an Irish car bomby type beverage where you drop something in and it like maybe like goes over the top.
Interesting.
I don't know what that would be.
And then you just right. But it will make you feel more elevated.
It will. And with that, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, please welcome to the stage, Elevation.
And let's end the summit with a game.
Great.
All right, we are playing superlatives. Okay, so we are looking at the list of hikes that we did, and we have come up with some superlatives.
We have.
Here, and we're both going to answer them. All right. You want to go first?
Sure. We'll just go back and forth.
Great.
Your most fear-filled hike?
Of this season, my most fear-filled hike. I mean, I guess I'm going to have to say Morro Rock. I mean, for me personally, just like the heights were a lot to deal with, and just dealing with just like my mind coated in dread the whole time.
Yeah, I'm going to say Mora Rock too. Tamichi Root doesn't really have fear attached to it. It was more fun for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mora Rock kicked me in the pants of my height fear, which I didn't think I had. Mm-hmm.
What about fastest hike? The one that you feel like we did like lightning quick.
What did we fly on through? I feel like probably... I feel like we really hiked Cassidy Arch very quickly.
I was literally thinking the same one. I was like, we were up there in like no time.
Yeah. It's a great hike, but it's quick to do, for sure. How about the hike that taught you the most? Maybe about yourself.
The hike that...
Tell me a story about yourself. Or it could be something that you learned that you never knew.
I think it's going to have to be Tamichi Root.
Damn it. That was mine too.
Because,
we are on a brain share, sister.
That one was... there was a learning curve when it came to doing that route, because it was definitely like, oh, well, if you're a little ahead and I kick a rock, then that rock could hit you in the head.
Right.
So you're either going to have to be significantly further ahead, but still like in earshot, or we're going to have to hike parallel. Yeah. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What about you?
It taught me that I love thrills like that. Like
I love thrills.
I love thrills. It definitely like reinforced the fact that like those types of hikes are like, I'm kind of like a little bit of an adrenaline junkie when it comes to that.
You don't say.
You don't say. That's what I think it reinforced for me. So it definitely taught me that.
Great. What was the hike with the most surprises?
Probably Sliding Sands Trail.
Brain share.
Yeah. Hi, guys. We just are the same person. We just throw our voices real well.
Yep.
Yep. Just like we said earlier in the episode, there was just so much that like you just were not expecting from that hike, especially after having done another volcanic national park literally the day before. I think I was unassuming as to what was going to happen there.
We were just going off of the fact that the ranger at the visitor center had told us, oh, this is the coolest thing to do in Maui or in this park. Yeah. And so
don't worry about the coastal unit. Just do this.
We'll go. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah. What about the hike with the best views?
Oh, the hike with the best views.
I'm going to try to pick something that you don't pick.
I've got it.
Go for it.
I'm going to say Warner Point in Black Canyon of the Gunnison.
I agree with you. That is a beautiful hike.
Absolutely. A stunning view from the top of Warner Point. Yeah. What about you?
Mine is Chimney Rock.
Yeah, that would have been my next one.
Is just not only in the distance, but everything that we were hiking to and around that you could see that was far away. Just magic hour light, everything. Like it all coalesced into a beautiful experience.
Okay. Yeah. So my next one for you is most exhausting hike.
Oh.
And I don't mean most exhausting day of hiking. I mean most exhausting
like tired
hike.
After. Yes. Ooh. That is something right there.
I know my answer.
Little Devil's Stairs.
That is exactly my answer too.
Yeah.
I don't think any one of these trails took it out of me the way Little Devil's Stairs did. Yeah. Because we were like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, we'll do this, which we were just descending down a fire road, and we had to go straight up.
Yep. And my last one is the hike where you felt the smallest.
Oh, that's a great one. Let's see. I think I'm going to say like it's a tie somewhere in between, Round Meadow and Congress Trail because of all those gigantic sequoia trees.
Right. What a surprise. That's mine too. It's definitely Round Meadow. Round Meadow I felt very, very, very tiny. I could say Tamichi Route too, because you're so far down in the canyon and looking up just how tiny you are in this space. But I do feel like when you are comparing another living organism that is gigantic right next to you, it has to be something in Kings Canyon or Sequoia for me. Teeny, tiny people we are.
What hike brought you the most peace? That's my final one.
That's a good one. I think for me, it was probably Scorpion Canyon Loop. Yep. Hi, we're friends. We've been friends for a while. And we share experiences together. What a surprise.
That one, yes.
Yeah.
That was so special. And I remember just being up there going like, just breathe and take it in.
Yeah.
Because it's the best.
Yeah. It is just that wind, the view, the sounds of the grass blowing like through the wind, or the wind blowing through the grass. Grass doesn't blow through wind. I guess it can.
It's okay.
Yeah. There's all the things. I mean, what a special experience to be able to visit a national park. Whether it gives you some peace, whether it gives you a sense of adventure, whether it fills your soul just from being outdoors. The national park system is a place that is incredible and should be accessible to everyone for all of the reasons we just listed, and more. And we hope that you continue to explore the national park system, whether it's with Dusty and I through Gaze at the National Parks or through your own adventures, because getting out there is literally nothing like it.
This has been our Season 2 Summit by Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast. And we're here to remind you to hike early and hike often, and adventure is always out there.
Gaze at the National Parks was created and is hosted by Dustin Ballard and Michael Ryan.
To see images from this episode, follow our Instagram at Gaze at the National Parks. To email us, contact us at gazeatthenationalparks@gmail.com. And to find out more about all of the parks mentioned in Season 2, go to our website, gazeatthenationalparks.com. That's Gaze, Gaze.
All original artwork featured on Instagram and on our website is by Michael Ryan.
All original music was written by Dave Seaman and performed by Dave Seaman, Mariella Klinger, and Sean Sklios. Our music producer is Skylar Fortgang.
This episode was edited by Dustin Ballard. Stay tuned for 2 bonus Trail Mix episodes over the next 2 weeks before we end Season 2.